Good morning. We have 2 members of the public registered to speak today. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. The first speaker today will be Charlton D'Souza, followed by Christopher Greif.
This is Charlton from Passengers United. The Long Island Railroad, we need the Atlantic ticket extended overnight. The weekly Atlantic ticket that in March, and I spoke to Sarah Maya about this. So we're hoping you guys can extend it overnight so that people can use it to and from Penn Station. Also, I wanted to talk about some of the stuff happening with the railroad stations and the waiting rooms. The waiting rooms should be kept open, especially when it's cold. No one should be forced to wait on a cold platform. And the thing with the railroad, the Hempstead schedules in Queens Village, there's a big gap between trains, and that needs to be adjusted, especially in March, since you'll want the new ridership to come back. And in terms of the overcrowding and people not wearing masks on the Long Island Railroad, that's been a big issue. We're getting a lot of complaints at Passengers United that people are on the trains, they're not wearing masks. So we need to step up enforcement on that, and we need to have the mask force out, making sure that people have their mask on. And even some of the train crews are not wearing masks, I've been told, and that's an issue. So we need to address that. And in other issues, safety at Penn Station. As you guys know, there's been several incidents over there, and they need to ramp up security. What I would suggest is create an area so that passengers can just show their tickets and have a special passenger waiting area so that people are not going, homeless individuals are not going on the platforms, on the stairs. And then like this, you have better security. And that's all I have to say for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christopher Greif.
I'm Christopher D. Greif, and Happy New Year to everyone. I agree with Mr. Charles about this because regarding the Freedom Ticket, we do need to increase it, not just on the Long Island Railroad, but as well as Metro North as well. So I am encouraging to our board members, let's get the Freedom Ticket to run. It will make it easier for everyone, for the seniors and people with disabilities as well. But regarding homelessness, I agree with him. We definitely need to work together, be dealing with these homelessness. These homelessness at Penn Station are blocking walkways, and a person who cannot see or may not hear, we don't know if that person is going to walk correctly. We need to have more safety in Penn Station. There is a lot of increasements at Atlantic Avenue, and I'm glad to see that. But I do think our MTA police doing the best they can. But we do need to remind everyone, you must wear your mask on the train. More announcements, more signages, and let's get the MTA police to please make sure they're all wearing a mask or have no choice to find them. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment.
Good. I'm sorry, do we have one more public speaker?
Apologies, they weren't on the list as far as I could see. Could our next public speaker please step up? Thank you. Please say your name as well.
Good morning. I'm Kara Girl, Research and Communications Associate at the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA. I'll start with the good news. Congratulations on the recent announcement that the Long Island Railroad has the best on-time performance in modern history. It's promising that delays are going down and riders are getting to their destinations faster. But it's hard to use on-time performance as a metric for good service when ridership and frequency are both at low points. We hope that you can tout this on-time performance as a way to entice riders back on board and that you can maintain such good metrics when ridership does bounce back. The best way to show riders who return to the railroads that they made the right decision is to give them a safe, fast, reliable, and pleasant ride. But no one wants to wait outdoors in below freezing temperatures, especially when locked indoor waiting rooms are right before their eyes. The MTA should give Long Island Railroad riders a warm welcome back, literally, instead of leaving them out in the cold. Riders deserve to have open waiting rooms and restrooms for many more hours of the day. We understand it's not feasible to keep them open 24/7, but as the meaning of rush hour continues to evolve and riders take the train during non-traditional commuting hours, it's important that the Long Island Railroad and Metro North meet their needs. This includes expanding SOS teams announced by Governor Hochul to the commuter rails to provide mental health services and resources to those in need along the railroads so that people have better options than using the waiting rooms as shelter. We all know that ridership on the railroads has taken a hit lately. The most important thing the MTA can do to get Long Island Railroad and Metro North riders back on board is to listen to their concerns. Riders have spoken, and they want to see open waiting rooms at their stations. You're on the right track with great on-time performance and fewer delays. Now, let's prove to riders that taking transit really is the best way to get around the region. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jason Anthony.
Good morning, Kevin, Rhonda, David, Neil, Gerald, Randy, Phil, and Kathy. Jason Anthony from Amazon Labor Union. Starting a new year with a positive note that both commuter rails initiate they started off the year with the 95% on-time performance. Congratulations, Phil and Cassie. And we hope that this trend continues into the winter months. And let's bring the riders back into the system, especially those who visit us out of town, that could take advantage of the Long Island Railroad from Jamaica to Penn Station and or Atlantic Terminal, Brooklyn, Flatbush Avenue, where I live 2 blocks away from. And offering that ride for $5. That only takes 20 minutes. Imagine taking the J from Jamaica, from Sunset Archer to Broadway Junction, and then to change to Hoyt Skimmerhorn on the A. That takes us more than an hour. Yet better, keep it for $5 during weekdays, but $4.50 on weekends. And using City Ticket and expand it to Metro North's Hudson Line. Why the Hudson Line? Because we can offer this between GCT and Riverdale because they lack of subway service. We could use it. The only way that they could connect is through the one on Mobile Hill, at Yankees 155th Street, and Harlem 125th Street, where they have the Lexington Avenue line and soon the Q train. So let's think outside of the box, folks, because we are in 2022 and we're starting the year on a positive note, and let's keep it that way. I'll see you guys in transit.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Murray Bowden.
Can't see you all. Morning, Kevin. Phil, that's you behind the mask, I think. I know you when you worked for New York State DOT. And I was followed your career when you started there. When you came to Long Island Railroad, I followed you very closely. You've done a fantastic job. You've done, working with the construction people, changed bridges and things in ways that were innovative. You built the bridges on the side, you rolled them in there, you did the third track. Exemplary. So your transition from New York State DOT, which is still fouled up, to Long Island Railroad, which you've done a lot to make work better, especially third track, parking lots, things like that. So thank you. You reset the clock. I would like to speak on Metro North.
This is a Long Island Railroad
Oh, okay.
public comment.
I'll come back again.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I get mixed up.
No, there's only one public comment period. So Murray, stay up. If you have something to tell us about Metro North, let's just, do that so we don't make you get up again.
I'm going to try and do that. Kevin, you got a big problem with Kathy. You gotta see, I can't tell her with the mask's on. The law says that the box at the railroad crossing has to be black and white. I spent 2 years asking them to convert it from a red box to a black and white. I passed it last night because I had lunch with my daughter and son-in-law. Came home that way just to see if the red box was still there. It isn't red because colorblind people cannot tell red. Somebody questioned my authority on this, and I copied exactly from the manual. You all want me to obey the law? Gork's two-way street, and it's much more a safety issue. It's indicative of the fact that Metro North is not following the law. And it is the responsibility of this committee to replace the president of Metro North with somebody who will obey the law. Hard thing to say. You want me to obey the law? You want me to stay here for 2 minutes and then go off? You want me to wear a mask in it there? I follow those rules. Rules are two-way. Replace Kathy Rinaldi because she is not doing things in a public safety. She is directly breaking the law. And you can't get any more simple than that. I sent you a copy, copied exactly from the manual of uniform traffic control devices. It specifically mentions railroad crossings and black and white signs.
Please conclude your remarks. Please conclude your remarks. Your 2 minutes are up. Thank you.
I've said the other things before. You don't have to hear them again.
That concludes our public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Randy and Michael Fleischer and Jerry Bringman and Harold Poor joining us virtually, and David Mack. So thank you guys for joining us virtually, the members who are here at headquarters. So like I always do, I always like to thank the men and women who got me here safely today in the Long Island Railroad and transit system. Observations, I thought pretty much everybody had a mask on. The ones who didn't were mostly high school kids who were wearing them as chin straps, like they do. But certainly all the adults had them on, and I only saw one person on the subway without a mask. So, from a COVID perspective, I felt safe on the system. But certainly when I got to Atlantic Terminal, waiting on the number for the 4 and the 5 to get me here, it was definitely interesting that people were nobody was leaning over the tracks to see if the subway was coming. Everybody was definitely back, and that was sad. And it certainly, I know it was being addressed at the safety committee. It's certainly something that we need to address. But from a COVID perspective, I felt safe. And so, those are just my opening comments and thoughts. I'm going to hand it over. Long Island Railroad goes first. Phil, let's do the approval of the minutes first. The minutes from December 13th, 2021 have been circulated. Bob Lynn moves. Neil seconds. Any comments, revisions, additions? Hearing none. All in favor? Minutes are approved. So now I'll hand it over to Phil to discuss work plans.
No changes to the work plans for Long Island Railroad, Kevin.
All right. So then why don't we go right to your agency report, Phil? Or actually, Kathy, any changes to your work plan?
No, there's no changes from the proposed work plan that was presented at last month's joint committee meeting.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. Now, Phil, I'll hand it over to you for the President's report for the Long Island Railroad.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year to all. I'd like to acknowledge Glenn Greenberg, Long Island Railroad's chief engineer who retired this past Friday. Glenn started at Long Island Railroad as a summer engineer in 1986, and he worked the next 3 summers until he became full-time in 1990 as a junior engineer. Glenn rose through the ranks over the course of more than 3 decades at Long Island Railroad, and while I only had the privilege of working with him for the last few years, his leadership has been instrumental in helping us to deliver improved and more resilient infrastructure for our customers. Most notably, our concrete tie replacement program and making Port Washington Branch our first all concrete tie branch, along with Jamaica capacity improvements that he continued to move forward, and Long Island Railroad expansion project. He has been known to say, the difficult we do immediately, and the impossible takes a little longer. We wish Glenn all the best in his next phase of his life, and I thank him for all his support and leadership. I'd also like to thank Ed Koch for stepping up to fill the void as acting chief engineer at Long Island Railroad. So I'm grateful to the strong team we have in engineering because every year brings new challenges. We saw a wicked curveball from COVID at the end of 2021, but I'm proud to say that the Long Island Railroad workforce stepped up and continued to deliver on our commitments to the public. 2021 ended on a high note as we set a modern-day record for the Long Island Railroad on-time performance. The best annual on-time performance since we started recording metrics back in 1979. Our trains ran at a rate of 96.3%, exceeding 2020 by 0.4 percentage points, but more importantly, delivering consistent, reliable service for our customers. This came in as we also saw a nearly 17% increase in ridership in 2021 at 35 million rides compared to 2020 at 30 million. We also had the best fall on-time performance and modern records, despite an extended low adhesion season. In October, November, and December, each of those months in 2021 individually, and as the fourth quarter as a whole, set new on-time performance records for the railroad. I'm incredibly proud to work alongside 7,000 strong Long Island Railroad employees as they truly demonstrated the Long Island Railroad motto, "We serve with pride." And to our labor partners, thank you for your continued support as we deliver this record work and record service. It's a teamwork between management, labor, and employees that have us moving in the right direction. I want to acknowledge my management team, Rob Free, Senior Vice President here today, Glenn Greenberg, Chief Engineer, Beth Sullivan, Chief Transportation Officer, Craig Daly, Chief Mechanical Officer, and Charlie McKiernan, General Manager of Service Planning. Because of their leadership in guiding the team, we've been able to innovate and solve problems that for too long went unresolved. 2 years ago, we launched an industry-first laser train that zaps slippery pectin off our rails, tackling low adhesion, minimizing flat wheels, thereby reducing the number of cars out of service, allowing us to run better, safe, reliable service. Not only saves the customer's time, but also saves us money in that effort. And in 2021, we cleaned 116% more miles of track than we did in 2020. We partnered with the manufacturer Laser Precision Solutions to further improve this technology. First, we improved the laser train's cleaning efficiency by 25% and increased the train speed. We improved how and when we deployed these trains, and I can comfortably state that the laser train is now a major tool in our toolbox towards mitigating the effects of fall weather and leaf fall season. It's important to note that these performance records were made while we've been completing record amounts of state of good repair work to keep our infrastructure strong as ever. I've said it before and it's worth repeating. Tackling those elements that are within our control and mitigating those things such as Mother Nature that we cannot control. For instance, one key metric that we reduced was major incidents attributable to the railroad, meaning things that are within our control that cause delays. In 2018, there were 125 of those incidents. In 2021, we significantly reduced that to 27, a 78% reduction from 2018. Those numbers demonstrate that our proactive actions are working. Things like switch failures, track circuit failures, the things that we can control are happening less and less frequently because of our commitment to aggressive inspection, maintenance, and state of good repair. And these accomplishments are the reason our on-time performance has continued to improve over the last few years. That previous slide demonstrated all the things that were making a difference. So here, let's take a quick look at some of the highlights of 2021. Our AM peak, 52, 100% on-time performance in AM peaks that we encountered. Okay. 66 PM peaks with 100% on-time performance. 13 days where both the AM, PM peaks had 100% on-time performance in the same day. And as I mentioned earlier, our on-time performance for the fall, each of the months, October, November, December, all records for us. And our overall numbers, 96.36 for the AM, 97.71% for the PM peak for the year. And the other part that's really important is to show the consistency. As you can see, month after month, we've been delivering consistent, reliable service to our riders. We're very proud of the efforts that is doing that, and that's what our riders have asked for, and that's what we're looking to continue to do in 2022 and beyond. So 2021 versus 2020 year-to-date ridership, we saw our 16.9% above 2020 and 1.7% above the mid-year forecast. And when compared to 2019, total ridership did decrease 61.6%, and 2021 year-to-date commutation was 30.7% below 2020. When compared to 2019, commutation ridership did decrease 80.8%, and 2021 year-to-date non-commutation ridership is 58.6% above 2020, and compared to 2019, non-commutation ridership decreased 37%. With the increases we've been seeing in ridership this year, or last year I should say, we've added trains to our January schedule, and that's been going successfully since early January of this year. So we promised several years ago that we would improve and deliver safe and more reliable service. I'm proud to say that we're doing just that. It's the best way to serve our existing riders and to encourage others to use mass transportation. We've continued to improve, and customers should know that we're both committed to meeting and exceeding their needs for both today and for the future. 2021 was undoubtedly a tough year. Not only did we get through it, we came out even better on the other side. So thank you to everybody. That concludes my remarks, Kevin.
Phil, what was the percent of ridership before, say, Omicron started really taking off? So say, where were we December 1st and where are we about now?
So in 2019, we actually were carrying record ridership. That was approximately 91 million trips, exceeding the 2018 rides. In the beginning of 2020, January, February, March, that ridership growth was consistent with what we saw and slightly above 2019. But then when things dropped, obviously 2020 was our reduced ridership due to everyone staying home, working from home. And then 2021, we saw a 17% increase in ridership over 2020.
Yeah, no, I'm curious, like, where were we like 2 months ago before like this recent?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did we hit 60% at all, or did we come close?
So the November trips were approximately 58% of our weekday ridership. That was actually exceeding the projections for 2020. We were projected to be around 50% by the end of the year. So November, we had exceeded that. Come December and January, as typical, we expected to see a drop due to holidays and vacations. That occurred, but in addition to the variant, we saw a drop to about, I think, in the 40% range of our ridership. And over the last week or so of January, we're starting to see that slightly tick up, probably around 45%, 48%, different days varies. So it's slowly coming back now again. We're optimistic that hopefully we get through this variant and we can get back to where we were at the end of November.
Great, thank you. And I had one other question, and then I'll open it up to others. There have been some media reports, and one of the speakers, I think, mentioned it too. Our waiting stations, that they're closed when the weather's the worst, when our customers may seem to need them the most. Can you just explain to us, at least from the Long Island Railroad perspective, how many stations do we have, and what's our policy about keeping them open during regular weather and then severe weather?
Thank you for asking that, Kevin. Actually, it gives me a chance to explain the practice. The Long Island Railroad has a practice where we always open the stations during inclement weather when it's freezing temperatures or sub-freezing temperatures. We've been doing that this winter. We've done it many times this winter. In fact, last weekend we opened the waiting rooms 24/7 from Saturday through Martin Luther King Day. This past Thursday, with the weather that we had, the snow event, and the cold temperatures through the whole week, we've actually had all our waiting rooms open 24/7 since Thursday, and we plan to keep them open until the end of this week, Friday, when the cold weather breaks. So our promise to our riders and to our customers is that when our stations are open, they're going to be clean, they're going to be convenient, they're going to be safe for them, and we're doing exactly that.
Thank you very much. Questions first in the room, and then I'll go to the guys who are our members who are participating virtually. Bob Lynn?
So, Kevin, I just want to follow up on your question. What is the McKinsey midpoint projection for 22 in terms of percentage ridership, and how are we now comparing to that?
You want?
As of January, it was supposed to be about 60%. And right now, as Phil had said, we're in the 40% range. It fluctuates day to day. Over the last week, we have seen an increase, so we're hoping it continues.
So, but we need to get to around 60% average for the year. A little over 60 or 68 for the...
I'm not sure what it is towards the end of the year, but I know in the beginning it's 60%. So in terms of budget standpoint, yeah, that was the projection of 60% as of right now.
Okay, thanks a lot.
The 60% is for the first 3 months. We're supposed to be at 60%, and it has us growing slightly till we get to a little bit close to 70 by the end of the year. A little bit higher than 75.
Good, but based on Phil's answer earlier, it seems like we were right about there, like December 1st. But for the surge, we might be there now. So hopefully things will continue to trend.
Correct. In fact, all of last year we were exceeding the McKinsey average. So that was a positive, and this variant, I think, was the curveball that we saw.
Any other questions from members in the room? Any questions from our members participating virtually? I see David Mack. Unmute, David.
Okay, how's that?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. I just want to make sure that we keep on top of all of our heating and ventilating systems, so we're ahead of the game, especially in this cold weather and with COVID. That's all.
Thank you, David. Any other members? Okay. Hearing none, we will continue with the Long Island Railroad Safety Report. Is Lori here? Yep. Hi, Lori.
Good morning and Happy New Year, everyone. We're reporting on our safety performance through the end of November 2021, and our report starts on page 31 of your book. We continue to focus very heavily on engagement with our customers, our employees, the public, to understand how they're experiencing safety in our environment. For the period ending November 2021, our reportable customer accident rate per million customers was 2.7. Our FRA reportable lost time injury rate per 200,000 hours worked was 3.96. I do want to note especially our focus and thank the social media team, Angelo Canella, Amanda Cunningham, and Karen Myers, because I think you'll see that as we pivoted due to COVID, that our social media presence has skyrocketed, and having that new and innovative way of reaching out to our customers and the public and having that ability to have that conversation has truly reaped dividends for us. So I want to thank them for their efforts, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the statistics in the book.
Any questions for Lori? Thank you, Lori. We'll now go to the Metro North report, and I'll hand it over to Kathy.
Thank you. I'd like to begin my remarks this month with a moment of silence for one of our employees who died as the result of COVID-19, Matt Chirico. Matt was hired in 1989 as a communication lineman, and he advanced into positions of assistant cable splicer and lead cable splicer, ultimately serving as a communications supervisor in the signal department. One of his recent accomplishments was being an integral part of the team installing fiber optic cable for the railroad to successfully implement our PTC system. He was highly respected by his colleagues for his knowledge and commitment to the railroad. He took great pride in his work. No matter the time of day or weather conditions, you could always count on Matt to be there to troubleshoot or fix a problem, or to finish a job that needed to be completed. He came from a railroad family. His father, Mike Cherico, is a structures manager for 30 years, and his sister Melanie currently works as an assistant director for MOW operations. Our deepest condolences go out to the Cherico family. He'll be truly missed by the Metro North family. So can I just have a moment of silence for Matt? Thank you. In June, we launched Way Ahead Moving Forward, which is our updated strategy for a strong regional recovery and a continued commitment to safety, reliability, and innovation in the delivery of excellent customer service. In addition to welcoming customers back and developing strategies to attract new customers, we're accelerating maintenance and major rehabilitation projects that are fundamental to providing safe and reliable train service. Our strong performance in 2021 is the result of a lot of hard work by Metro North employees in all departments. Turning to our agenda today, our crews were busy last year throughout the system maintaining our infrastructure and bringing it into a state of good repair, as reported in the track program update, which is included in today's agenda. Highlights in the report covering 2021 are the following. We replaced 54,583 railroad ties, including almost 5,000 ties west of Hudson. We installed 8.2 miles of new rail and welded 990 rail joints. We performed 2,785 miles of ultrasonic rail testing, more than 1,500 miles of track geometry testing, and undertook 139 miles of rail grinding to restore rail profile. Crews were also busy resurfacing 130 miles of track to ensure a smooth ride throughout our system. We replaced 28 track switches, including 4 at one of our critical interlockings near Hartsdale Station, on the Harlem line, to improve service reliability and ensure operational flexibility. We also repaired several overhead vehicular bridges and undergrade bridges that carry our trains and replaced almost 1,900 deck ties on these bridges, while also sprucing up some of our stations with repairs and painting. Other major accomplishments during the year include the following: installing a new signal system to enable PTC to be operational on the Waterbury branch, developing, testing, and deploying updated onboard software for the M8 fleet to improve PTC operations on the New Haven line, completing the installation of delineators at all 106 railroad crossings in New York and Connecticut. These high-visibility reflective posts alert drivers to not drive vehicles onto tracks. We've also enhanced crossings to make them safer and more visible with LED lights, electronic bells, additional flashers, replacement of gate mechanisms, and new concrete surfaces at many other crossings. In partnership with our safety department and the MTA safety department, we are actively working with NISDOT, localities, and the MTA's grade crossing consultant, Banesh, on future improvements to many grade crossings across our operating territory. Last year, we also undercut 3 miles of track between Larchmont and Harrison on the New Haven line to restore the proper height in relation to overhead catenary wires. Finally, we restored our infrastructure impacted by weather events, including Tropical Storm Henri and the remnants of Hurricane Ida. This includes working closely with our partners at C&D on replacing a culvert near Dobbs Ferry Station, which is now 75% complete, with work finished on 3 of the 4 tracks in the area. We anticipate that the final work will be done by the early part of March. These incredible efforts are due to the hard work of many departments, including and mostly our Maintenance of Way department, and I thank them all for their efforts in maintaining our infrastructure, and I would like them to keep up the good work. Keeping our infrastructure assets well maintained is fundamental to providing riders with safe and reliable train service and is one of our priorities under our Way Ahead Moving Forward strategic plan. These proactive measures are paying dividends with overall service delivery of 97.1 in 2021, which is the second consecutive year we finished with on-time performance above 97%. For the month of December, our East of Hudson service operated above goal at 97.7% on time. Broken down by line as follows: Hudson Line operated at 97.9%, Harlem Line service stood at 97.3% despite train delays and cancellations due to 2 major incidents. On December 11th, high wind conditions resulted in a tree falling on a transmission pole near Goldens Bridge Station, which resulted in 38 train delays. And on December 18th, a vehicle was stuck on the tracks at Green Lane grade crossing and was removed, which led to 14 train delays. New Haven Line trains performed at 97.9%. West of Hudson service operated above goal at 96.4% on time during December. Performance for 2021 was slightly below goal at 93.4%. The high performance last year is a direct result of the hard work of the entire Metro North team, who came together during the second year of the pandemic to ensure that our customers receive the safe and reliable train service that they deserve. Moving forward into 2022, our goal is to keep the strong progress going, and it's our unwavering commitment to the safety of our customers and the reliability of our service that we think will continue to bring riders back to the railroad as the region continues to rebound from the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, a few words on ridership. Last year's high on-time performance was accomplished as service levels increased from 63% of pre-COVID service at the beginning of last year to 82% of pre-COVID service, which began last August. This increase in service paralleled the growth in ridership from 18.6% of pre-COVID ridership in mid-February of last year to the peak of 50.6% of pre-COVID ridership in the first half of December. As we've been discussing in connection with the Long Island Railroad's performance, the rapid spread of the Omicron variant significantly dampened weekday ridership after the second week of December, driving overall ridership down when compared to 2019 and compared to November, the peak month for 2021. Fortunately, however, with this month, we appear to have bottomed out on ridership because of Omicron, and we've resumed an upward trend. Ridership last week, the week of the 17th, was up 9.4% over the week of January 10th and up 18.9% from the first week in January. Through last Thursday, we're at 36.1% of our pre-COVID average weekday ridership, so we're happy to see that people seem to be coming back. Just because of time, I'm just going to wrap up here. Thank you.
All
I have a question.
Any questions for
Yeah, I do.
Kathy?
I do.
Who's saying it?
Randy.
Oh. Hi, Randy.
Hi, good morning, 2022, everybody.
You're-
So with the anticipated completion of work at Dobbs Ferry in early March, can we expect new schedules will add back some of the express service that's been taken away due to the limitations of tracks?
Randy, yeah, I mean, we are certainly planning to change, well, number one, to take the time out that we added because of the Dobbs Ferry work as soon as that work is completed, which we currently anticipate for the beginning of March. And then, as we always are, everybody's always looking to the next schedule increase. So we're, actively looking at what that might look like. And obviously it hinges upon riders coming back, but we're actively engaged in a planning effort to see what that next schedule increase might look like, yes.
I sorely missed that express service earlier in the morning and the afternoons in the peak hour to Tarrytown. People have complained about it.
Yes, I've heard that. Thank you. Thank you, Randy.
Neil?
Thank you, Kevin. Carl Schurz, not the park, but the man, was famous for saying America when right to be kept right and when wrong to be put right. I kind of think of that as my role on this board. And Kathy, I want to thank you for putting Metro North right. You've had a real focus on safety. The accomplishments are very clear. The PTC we built and the final implementations of it are great. The focus on preventative maintenance is very clear. And even the focus on responsive maintenance like Dobbs Ferry means a lot to all of us. So thank you for that. I think you've made incredible progress over your years leading this organization during some trying times. I do have a question. You mentioned the stat of whatever it's 50 some odd percent we're back to of pre-COVID ridership. The Times did a piece a couple weeks ago about the differential ridership return in the city for the subway, e.g. You've got some markets, some areas where there's 80, 90% ridership, in some areas where it's 10%, in part because some people don't commute to work, they work from home, other jobs are not commutable or not remote working available. Could you give us some sense, and I think this applies to Phil as well, some sense of what the differential ridership is by our own either stations or zones or regions of Metro North and Long Island Railroad? I'd like to understand the conditions, just because I think it helps us understand what does it take to get ridership to return and what are the implications. And I know the data is probably not great, but you may have some sense.
Yeah, I mean, the data is a little bit different because, the commuter rail systems aren't gated, so we don't necessarily have, the granularity of data that you would have in the subway system. But certainly in terms of trends, it's not all that different from what you saw in the subway report in the Times, whenever that was, a week or so ago. So, for example, Fordham in the Bronx is a very busy station for us. I mean, a lot of essential workers live in that community. They're traveling in both directions, both into the city and then up to, reverse commute destinations. So you see that kind of activity in some of the Bronx stations. Also, early on in the pandemic, as we were coming, we've had so many cycles, right? But, some of the early morning construction trains on the Hudson Line, again, those are essential workers, construction workers. So, we saw some, a lot of activity on those trains as well. I certainly understand, a desire for more granular data with respect to station by station, and we're trying to figure out how to do that. But those are some of the larger trends that we've seen. Essential workers from stations that serve essential workers tend to be busier than stations that do not serve those communities.
Yes, and Neil, I think very comparable to what Kathy saw and talked about. Long Island Railroad experienced the same type of thing. Throughout the pandemic, there was the construction trade that continued to work. The folks that could not work remotely continued to ride. I think as last year started to evolve, the early peaks were predominantly where the strongest ridership was, both in the AM and the PM. We did have good, consistent ridership during the off-peak. And as we've both been reporting, obviously the discretionary travel was very strong. And then now we're seeing more of the usual trend. The 4 peak hours in the morning, 4 peak hours in the afternoon, ridership has come back to that or was coming back to that. And then our traditional branches that are frequently the heaviest, the Ronkonkoma Mainline branch, the Babylon South Shore branch, Port Washington branch, all of those we're seeing strong ridership as well. So it really, from my perspective, it's a matter of businesses and companies figuring out how they want their workforce to work. It's a matter of all the venues, the restaurants and the Broadway shows and things. As those continue to reopen and stay open, ridership will be strong. That's my optimism. And then the local issues or local growth, local downtowns, transit-oriented development on Long Island, that's been strong, robust. A lot of developments taking place around those stations will be able to draw ridership differently. And then obviously at the end of this year, we're looking forward to, supporting reverse peak commuters. Something that we actually saw at the March period of last year when we had the ability to run some more trains east. We did see ridership use those trains. And as we went more robust back to westbound, those riders were asking for those. So optimistic at the end of this year we'll be serving a much more diverse ridership.
So let me ask this, also as one who's always wanted granular data and thought it'd be very useful, and I asked actually the same question at the bridges and tunnels of what was there. Is there anything we could do with that data? If we knew that some stations were much more heavily used and others were much less heavily used, is there anything that we could then do because of that that would then help bring people back to the empty ones or perhaps provide additional service to the used ones? I'm just wondering what the granular data could do for us.
Well, I mean, we'll just intuitively, sure. I mean, if we had a sense, and we're trying to figure out surrogates to get a sense as to, which stations are busier than other stations. It informs service delivery decisions. It informs operations planning. So, of course, that kind of information, as we're essentially, we're talking about this as a group in this committee. To a certain extent, we need to rethink how we exist, understanding that there are going to be changes in work patterns. So understanding in a more granular way who's riding where, when, with what frequency from what stations is obviously going to inform some of those service delivery decisions as we go forward coming out of the pandemic. Absolutely.
I'll also add that the efforts by both railroads to have real-time loading information, not only was that important for our customers, but actually invaluable to the operations side of the house. I know service planning used that data in real time to make adjustments, to take a look at consist sizes, to look at how service needs to be provided, and constantly using that to even do the public communication messaging to folks. So that data is much more detailed than we used to have, telling us when people get on, when people get off, in real time and historically. So we actually do have much more granular data, both railroads, And I know that's going to be very invaluable to us as we not only look to make service delivery for the riders, but how capital investments need to be made to support those service delivery trips that we want to do.
Yeah, I would concur. We use that data quite extensively. It's been a very, very nice addition to the service planning process.
Any other questions? Not hearing any. How about the Metro North Safety Report?
Good morning. Metro North Safety Report can be found starting on page 34 of the committee book. The FRA reportable customer injury rate stands at 1.76 for the 12-month reporting period ending November 2021. The top category of incident is slips, trips, and falls. So we've worked with MTA Customer Communications to refresh our seasonal customer safety campaign to remind customers of safe behaviors during winter weather, such as watching out for slippery conditions and planning for extra travel time. Those messages are running on electronic signs throughout the Metro North system and on social media. The FRA reportable lost time employee injury rate stands at 2.01 for the 12-month reporting period, again ending November 2021. Slips, trips, and falls are also a top category of incident for employees, so we've been refreshing safety notices for employees and continuing to review all incidents for causes. In the interest of brevity, I'll stop there. This concludes my remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Before we get to the MTA police report, we were supposed to approve both the Long Island Railroad and the Metro North 2022 work plans like we do every January, and I'll move them, and Bob seconds them. All in favor? Any opposed? The work plans are approved. Thank you. Now, the MTA police report. Chief?
Good morning. Thank you. I think the best way to address this for both railroads is I'll stick to the classification and speak to both railroads, and I'll move through the 7 majors on the report. So what jumps off to the MTA police, and I think to everybody, is felony assaults, which includes mostly employees. There is an uptick on both railroads, higher on the Long Island Railroad. So Metro North had 15 for 2021 versus 11 the year before, and Long Island had 21 versus 10. We've made arrests in these. Primarily, we've made 13 arrests in the Metro North side and 18 arrests out of the 21 in the Long Island Railroad, but that doesn't really cure the problem. So what we did is we identified, all right, Metro North, 4 of those assaults were against conductors, 6 of them against police officers. Victims were 5. There was weapons used in 5 cases, 2 with a knife, a pipe, a bottle, and a gourd, which that lady is still locked up in Bedford Correctional and refuses to come to court. So she sits. On the Long Island Railroad side, 7 conductor assaults. Officer assaults was 6. Stranger victim was 7. Employees was 1, unfortunately. Again, weapons used, 4 were knives, 3 were laptop, skateboard, and a hammer. Breaking these down, a good portion of them are on trains and or platforms. Long Island Railroad was 10 trains, 4 platforms. Metro North was 7 trains and 3 platforms. That being said, and I think the common thread through this whole report is going to be the answer to help us with these numbers is our train patrol initiative. We just really got it ramped up the beginning of the year. We're using grant funding, and it is increasing the presence of the police on the trains and in the stations. As we move forward, what also is troubling is grand larcenies. So Metro North 38 versus 30 the year before, and Long Island Railroad 30 versus 29. Although those are relatively small upticks, not as many arrests, but the common thread to both railroads is sleeping unattended persons. So there was 14 on Metro North, 17 on Long Island Railroad. The police department used to do this Safeguard Your Stuff initiative where we printed up these flyers and we handed them out. And I think it did give us some type of awareness increase throughout the public. because we are doing this train patrol initiative, that's my plan, is to get those up and running, get them printed, get them put out there, keep people aware that, watch your stuff because it will disappear. Of those grand larcenies, we have seen an uptick too in parking lots with, they're back to taking catalytic converters again. There's some money in catalytic converters, I guess. So hopefully, again, I don't want to hang our hat on train patrol, but I think the increased presence throughout will move us forward in a positive way. Moving on to burglaries. Burglaries on the Metro North side went up quite a bit, 20 versus 9, only 13 arrests, but 10 of those were by 2 people in Grand Central. Flip side is it's not an excuse, but it's the reality of what we deal with in Manhattan with the DA's office. They still, when someone gets a barring notice from Rite Aid drugstore in the terminal, and they come back and commit a misdemeanor, the DA wants burglary charges. They want felony charges. It is what it is. So is it massaging it? I'm not even going to go there. But we don't know if that trend is going to stay with the new DA, but we'll see. So fortunately, those 2 individuals were arrested and are answering for it. The Long Island Railroad side had the 17 out of the 30 was people sleeping unattended. So again, we're gonna push to do that, and the bulk of them were either in the station or on the train. Robberies. So robberies on the Metro North side are down, and there was only 5 arrests. But we don't want any robberies, and I know that's a pipe dream. But the bottom line is that's what we don't want. The bulk of the robberies, it's a single digit number, but we're on trains, and 2 are in either platforms or stations. On the Long Island Railroad side, we're way down in robberies, 8 for last year versus 20 in 2020. No patterns on any of these robberies. Our detectives have been making a lot of good arrests, but sometimes, it's very difficult. Again, burglaries on Long Island Railroad, burglaries on Metro North. I spoke to the Long Island Railroad had an uptick in yards and locker rooms. Those are difficult for us to combat. In employee areas, it's hard for us to do anything about that. That's just a product that we have to deal with. So we had burglaries on Long Island Railroad was 12 versus 7 the year before. So as I said, our arrests are up in 3 major categories: grand larceny, burglary, and felony assaults. They're up quite a bit. So that's a positive, but through our increased presence, fingers crossed, we're going to be able to bring those numbers down. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. I have one question for you. For the non-train crimes, do we share all this information with the village, town, and county police departments, and is there a coordination or collaboration with those police departments to help with the stations, the platforms, and/or the parking lots at those train stations?
So we do share with the Westchester County Real-Time Crimes, Nassau County, the major counties. We share our stats. As far as, the counties are even drilling even down to the villages and the towns. Inherently, I'd have to tell you the truth, I don't believe that they're going to go patrolling the platforms and stations. Intermittently, they're probably there. But as far as aggressively a presence by the locals, it's hit and miss as it goes. Fortunately or unfortunately, through 911, those agencies are the ones that get the crime in progress complaints, and they will respond then. That does happen. And then that forces, dialogue between both agencies. But we do, to answer the question, we do share our information, our intel, and our stats. But as far as collaboration, obviously, if we had a pattern of some type of, serious event, we would all hands on deck. But, to speak of like catalytic converter crimes, it's really hard, something to, really put your finger on it. It's going to be difficult.
Bob, Lynn, and then Vinny.
An incident that occurs, let's say, at Penn Station or Grand Central, will that appear both in your data and the city data? Or how will that be recorded?
It shouldn't appear in the city data. We don't take 61s. Years ago, under the railroads, Long Island Railroad, Metro North Railroad Police, we used to take 61s, which was a city report, which would automatically dump that into their database. So my understanding is now we are standalone and report to the state and the feds on our own crime stats. So the city doesn't carry that statistic.
I see. So a push on a track of a railroad would occur in yours, but not in the cities and in the subway, even though it's the same station. And the subway would appear in the cities and not yours.
Correct. Correct.
Thanks.
Yeah, so, obviously it's no surprise to this board that I certainly have tremendous concern in the assaults against the employees, against conductors and police officers in the system. I've spoken on this numerous times over the last few years. I truly believe that the MTA Police Department, the MTA PBA, we have weekly meetings to discuss every incident that transpires. They're very receptive, to writing specific trains that are more problematic. But, as a board, how can we help? How could members of this committee and the board as a whole help? And the chief said it perfectly. The train patrols are the key component to this. I know the chairman of the MTA is supportive of it, wants the police on the train and actively riding trains, and we're going to need that. So when the discussions come down the road in this room about police resources, we need to back that and the resources that are necessary. And we also need to use some of our political connections that these prosecutors do the right thing when employees are assaulted, not minimizing the types of assault. Assault's assault. So, we appreciate the chief's comments. We're all on board, and we ask this committee, unions as a whole, ask the committee to, plug for the resources necessary when they're necessary.
Well said, Vinny. We should have the back of all your members throughout the system. Any other questions for the chief? All right, let's move on because the first committee meeting today ran long, and we're going to be backing up into transit. Let's see. Agency action items. Metro North, we have a New York State DOT grant for connecting services. Does that need board approval or committee approval, Kathy?
It does, yes.
Can you explain what this is?
Sure. So we do this every year. We're seeking approval to enter into a contract to accept up to $365,000 for a CMAQ grant, which we've used in the past to defray some of the expenses associated with the ferries. So I would ask for a motion and approval of this item.
Good, I'll move it. Frank will second it. Any comments, questions, abstentions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Phil, any agency information items for the Long Island Railroad?
Well, they're in the book, but just to reiterate, as part of the main line expansion project, we do have signal testing that's going to be ongoing this coming weekend, January 29th and 30th, and again on February 5th to the 6th. But all information is in the book.
Great. Kathy, anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, I alluded to it in my remarks. The track program quarterly update is in the book. Dave Malillo is here if you have any questions about that update.
Here are no questions. Phil, any procurements for the Long Island Railroad?
No procurements.
Kathy, any procurements for Metro North?
There is one joint procurement for both railroads that Anthony Gardner will describe for the committee.
Yes. Good morning. There is one competitive procurement in the package. Metro North, on behalf of itself and Long Island Railroad, requests board approval to award a 5-year competitively solicited miscellaneous service contract conducted through the RFP process to the firm Nouveau Elevator Industries in the estimated amount of $31,768,434. 3 proposals were received, and the selection committee unanimously selected the firm Nouveau, who received the highest technical rating and had the lowest price. The contract includes ongoing maintenance, inspection, and repair services for 53 escalators located in Grand Central Terminal, White Plains, Penn Station, and various Long Island Railroad stations located in Nassau, Suffolk, and Queens counties. This third-party contract is required to maintain reliability and safety of this critical equipment for general, public, and employee use. May I please have a vote on this procurement?
Thank you. I'll move it. Frank seconds it. Any comments, revisions? Abstentions? There's a question.
I know you're in a rush. Just let me. So I just have a question about something like this kind of contract. So they're bidding on not just preventative maintenance, going checking on things, that which they can budget for, but they're also in this $31 million already assuming all the costs for if a certain elevator breaks, they fix it. Yes.
Yes, the two major facilities, Penn and Grand Central, there are crews that are there 8 hours a day, and any off-hour issues are addressed on an all-call basis. But this, the 31 million is comprehensive for parts, daily evaluation, and the service, bringing the service forward for the 53 escalators.
So you're saying, I'm just making this up. Let's say all of them go completely defunct. They're a disaster. They must all be fixed. These guys can. The 31 million covers all costs, no matter how bad, no matter to what extent these elevators break.
Because they are on site daily, they should not all go defunct. They are required to, obligated to, keep the escalators running at a high level of performance, which I believe is about average 97%. So they have significant crews and infrastructure to maintain both railroads' escalators.
Okay, I only raise it because I can understand how you bid out something that's about parts, and I understand how you bid out something that's labor. But if you don't know how much something is going to break, I guess they assume some level of out of service, and they assume some sort of extend on history, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, and so that's all embedded in the work scope that they responded to. It was done via a request for proposal. There were two other competitors, but in that work scope, it outlines the uptime that is required, as well as, and that's why the crews are there. They are obligated to maintain the escalators on an ongoing basis.
And the last thing I'll say is the higher bidder was what, 54 million?
Yeah.
So there's a huge difference between 54 million and 31 million, right? That's a 60% difference. So how are these guys able to provide the same service for, dramatically lower cost than the competitor? I don't know. You've obviously seen many of these. That seems like a big difference. It's not like they're getting widgets cheaper than the next guy. So they're obviously getting labor a lot cheaper. How are they sourcing such dramatically cheaper labor?
The selected firm is also the incumbent firm. They have, by nature of, they have, had the prior contract, they have a lot of inherent knowledge on what it takes to provide the service. So, whereas others, although we go through an extensive review with the proposers, we have pre-proposal conference to discuss the work, but they hedge their risk and they put additional cost in.
Good questions, Neil. So there was a motion, there was a second. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Phil and Kathy, are there any agency reports on operations, metrics, finance, ridership, and capital program highlights you want to bring to our attention?
Kevin, everything's in the book. Staff here to answer any questions if there are.
Yeah, same. Reports are in the book. Any questions? We're happy to answer them.
Great. So that concludes our agenda. I just want to share something personally. Many of you know Governor Kathy Hochul has nominated me to become the next chairman of the Empire State Development Corporation. I'm told that my confirmation hearing may be as soon as next week, which means this could very well be my last meeting of the Long Island Railroad and Metro-North Committee. If my replacement isn't approved, and if Jano needed me for the February meeting, maybe I'll just hold off on my resignation. But just in case this is my last meeting, I wanted to just say, one, it's been great becoming friends with so many of you guys for the last 3 years. I'm so impressed with the leadership of Kathy and Phil, but also the professionalism of all all the teams on both sides. You know, we're an oft-maligned organization in the media, and nobody ever appreciates the dedication, the hard work of the professionals in this organization, and of course the men and women of labor who I complimented before. Every time I took the train and subway to MTA board meetings, always got me here safely and on time. So I'll say a little bit more on Wednesday's board meeting, but I just wanted to get that out there in case today is my last meeting chairing it. So thank you all very much. So now I'll move to adjourn, and Bob Lynn seconds. All in favor? Everybody, thank you. The meeting's adjourned.